up the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me.
Hello, Miami. Thank you so much for watching 305 Sports Now. I am your host, Will, and it's still with the Canes Talk, bro. Still with the Canes Talk, and I am bringing on a guest that you guys know is very familiar. He is a frequent guest on Locked On Canes, and he's a good friend of this show as well, Mr. Brad Tejeda, man. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Well, what's up, my guy? How's it going, man? Always appreciate you having me. Can't wait to talk some Canes football, man.
Thanks, my friend. Well, over here, the weather has gotten a little warmer. We're like in the 60s right now. What about your neck of the woods?
Yeah, up here in Gainesville, bro, we're waking up to about the high 20s, low 30s, and then it doesn't pick up till like the 50s and 60s till about like 2-3 o'clock.
Okay. Are you like a winter guy? Do you like the winter? No, you're not a winter guy.
Not a winter guy, bro. I only like the winter if I am preparing for it. Like if I'm going on a ski trip or something, taking the family out, to a cabin for a few days or something. Then all right, cool. We'll bundle up, make sure I'm prepared to know we're going into some cold weather. But look, we live in Florida for a reason, right? Yeah. I want to make it hot all the time. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, man, like down here, it's like sweltering 85, 90 for like 11 months out of the year, man. So a little 40s, 50s is good, bro. It's good. I definitely don't want to be. I definitely want to be New York or Ohio right now. I'll tell you that much. That's a no-go for me. But I'll take 50s and 40s. It's not a problem as well. It's so funny though because I'm a teacher and there are people saying they should cancel school. I'm like, it's not even snowing.
Definitely not. No cancel school over here. So.
No, definitely. All right, my man. So this is a football topic for the audience. It's like, dude, I don't want to talk about the weather. Okay, so anyways, this is a football talk, all right? So, I mean, the national championship is coming on. You attended. That must have been a raucous atmosphere. So I want to get your thoughts about attending the national championship game, and how would you define the crowd? Was it 60-40 Indiana? Was it 50-50? Were there more Canes fans than what, ESPN showed? Like what was your take on it?
I mean, first and foremost, man, the experience was incredible. Definitely worth it. I'm glad I didn't have to pay the value of what, third-party websites were paying and whatnot. But I mean, just the overall experience, being able to tailgate with some of my guys, Jerry Campos, Steve Kim, a bunch of other dudes, man, it was awesome. Great time. And definitely the crowd was probably more close to 70-30 Indiana, to be honest with you. They definitely came and took over the stadium when it came to crowd presence. But we definitely at times, made it feel like home field advantage. And I think at the end of the day, man, there were a lot of mistakes throughout the football game. I know, the offensive play calling the first half was a little bit, suspect. I think, in the second half, specifically on our defensive side, there were times where you kind of thought you needed to play a little bit more press coverage just based off some of the things they were doing. But you weren't doing that. But at the same time, they were just making plays when they needed to, right? You got to give it to Indiana whenever big plays needed to be made. They did it. But at the end of the day, man, our defense came to play. I think we held them to like under 160 yards. And then on top of that, the special teams, man. This was a team in Indiana that was top 5 in the country at block punts and kicks going into this football game. And the fact that you lost 7 points on a block punt and then you missed a field goal on top of that, between those two things, that's a 10-point swing, and you still came down to the final drive of the game. I think the special teams at the end of the day was something that really hurt us in that championship game. But hey, we'll be talking about the future of Miami and what Mario has continued to build. And I think at the end of the day, man, Miami fans, especially guys like myself, yeah, it sucked that we lost the football game, but we knew leaving that stadium that we were going to be right back in the playoffs and possibly the championship next year. And that was even before the Mensa news was announced.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surreal experience watching that game. And I said, I'm like, to beat Indiana, they're a beatable team. And Miami held their own, but you had to play clean. You had to play a near perfect game. And I think Indiana did that. and we didn't. And like you said, the missed field goal and the blocked punt were very costly. It's a 10-point swing in that regard. But I have to ask you, I know how I felt watching on my television screen when Beck threw that pick. Like, what was your feeling? Because when you're at the game, it's a totally different ball game. Like, I mean, I saw the two wide rights, when Miami beat Florida State when I was a small child. I saw them on television, but nothing beats the experience of wide right 3 when I was actually at the Orange Bowl for that game. So my experience, what I saw when I saw the interception was like the wind got knocked out of me, because I seriously thought, oh my God, we're gonna do this. You being in the stadium and being around Canes fans, like, what was your thought process when that drive was starting and after when Beck threw that pick?
I think there was definitely a sense of calmness going into that drive. After we got that stop on defense, we were like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right, we started to get that momentum back in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, once he threw that interception and everything was done, I think most of the fans like myself, you had that sense of just that punch in your stomach where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
damn. But it wasn't. I'll be honest with you. So I went to the A&M game in College Station, round 1 in the playoffs, and then I also went to the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona. And being at those 2 games, the feeling of those 2 games were monumental, a lot more bigger, in my opinion, than watching us lose in the championship, as
Yeah.
gut-wrenching as it was. I just felt like the experiences, anyone who has, had the opportunity to go to those playoff games will probably agree. I mean, each one of those games, round by round, just felt like Disney like picture moments throughout that game, and you almost had to pinch yourself, right? And like seeing the confetti fall, or like being able to go into a big time SEC opponent and just take over that whole stadium, being called the 12th man, and
Yeah.
as many fans that were in there. At the end of the day, a little private school ended up walking away and literally just taking the breath away from 104,000 fans, and it was awesome.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, I can imagine going through that, seeing that atmosphere, and then coming out with a victory. How you found it. I know we talked about it before as well. I can imagine also the Fiesta Bowl as well. And that was a great game, because like the first game in round 1, it was tight. It was defensive. That win was a problem, but then game the third game was like a firefight a little bit. You had Beck had to make some throws. It was a little bit more offense, and it was spectacular. So yeah, man. I mean, I'm happy for you that you had that experience. I'm glad you got to enjoy it. I'm glad you're able to give perspective from each and every game that you're able to witness, and also the national championship game. All right, as well. But like you said, okay, Mark Cristobal's got us, in the right direction. I'm extremely, extremely, extremely excited about next season, especially with the acquisition of Darren Mensa. Finally, Duke caved and they worked something out, behind closed doors, and he's a Cane. All right. So what was your feeling when you found out that Mensa is a Cane, and what does Mensa bring to the table that Carson, that a little different? Not, I don't want to bag on Carson. Beck got us the national championship game, but he's a little different than Beck. Like what are the differences between him and Beck that you think is going to really benefit Miami and maybe even take us to the next level next season?
Well, first and foremost, going back to when we ended up getting Mensa, I kind of had a few people very connected, that, probably about a week or so before even Mensa was potentially actually going into the transfer portal. He was a name
Mm-hmm.
kind of mentioned to me, like, hey, you need to start watching out for this name. And I think just going back a couple months prior to that, when we were in the playoff run, not even a couple months, right? Like a month, really. The only possible names, in my opinion, that really could have just made me feel like, all right, we have a chance to go into the playoffs and be a big time program again next year, was Mestamaker,
Mm-hmm.
Sorsby, or maybe Levitt. But the more I started to learn about Levitt behind the scenes, he really didn't fit our program and our culture. So it was more of a reach, kind of in desperate need that second go around, because I think the first go around we really could have went for the fences and got him early, but we decided not to, just because there were already 1 or 2 red flags. So we started
Mm-hmm.
to hold off, and that's when he started to do his little run of going to other big time programs and visits and LSU and whatnot. And then that's when he started to get a little bit more leverage on his side. And at the same time, Miami was missing on, the bigger targets that they wanted, like Sorsby, like a Mestamaker. Um, But when Mensah came out, I thought if Mensah would have been out from the jump, he probably would have been 1A or 1B on our list. And going back to your question about him and Beck, I mean, just first and foremost, you're talking about a guy who was second in college football in passing yards this past year, compared to Beck, who was number 9th in the country, right? Almost 400 yards more, right? It's not really much more per game. But when you really look at it, look at the running game that Mensah had at Duke compared to what Beck had. Look at the offensive line that Beck had compared to Mensah. Look at the wide receiver room that Mensah had compared to Beck, right? And I think at the end of the day, now, not only are you getting Mensah, but now you're getting his number one target at Duke and Barkate, right? Cooper Barkate, and pairing him with Malachi Toney. So now you're getting the top 2 wide receivers in your conference to pair with each other. And you're talking about a Duke team that was 16th in the country in offense per game at 34.6 points per game, where Miami was 30th in the country at only 31.6. So just imagine with the type of players he's about to play with, he's going to be able to spread the ball a lot more than what we even imagined with what we had with Carson Beck. And I think it's really going to help translate some of the big time opportunities that Shannon Dawson's going to want to use. And it's really going to give you back, that Cam Ward type of offense. It's going to be a different flavor, right? I don't think anybody's Cam Ward, but Mintz is definitely going to be able to stretch that football. And I think you're going to look at more around 35 to 38 points you're going to be averaging per game instead of 31 this past year.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really excited. I mean, I wish you could play this Saturday, to be frank with you. I wish the season started this upcoming Saturday, because I'm really excited about this offense as well. The running back position, we kept everybody. I mean, the speculation was that people felt that it would be Lyle to hit the transfer portal, not Pringle. Pringle hit the portal. We found out why. And then they were able to work things out, behind closed doors, and Pringle, stayed with the team, and the team is pretty intact. And I think a very, very extremely talented running back room as well. But with a guy like Mensah, Fletcher doesn't really need to take that many carries, and he got to actually rotate a little bit more as well. What are your thoughts on the running game this next season? I actually think they're gonna have more yards per game per average and more yards per carry this upcoming season, just because of the fact that they have to worry about the deep threat of Darian Mensah.
It's going to be interesting because there's only one football, but there's so many bodies. So I'm very interested to your point, if that's going to end up happening, how many carries are all these guys going to get, right? Because I think hell of a job by Coach Merritt for being able to persuade, guys like Lyle and Pringle, and even, Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, to come back, because Mark Fletcher indeed wanted to come back, because with all those guys, you're bringing in a Cooper Barkate, you got a Malachi Toney, you got 2 other transfer portal guys, and Vaughn and a few other guys too, right? So I think you're going into this next football season wanting to spread the football, especially in the air, because you don't really have a tight end that you're going to be able to rely on as much. So I think it's going to be a really big question mark. How are you going to feed that football on the ground? Because I think there's going to be a lot of big time play opportunities in the air. I think your yards per game in the air is going to go up this upcoming year. So now maybe the rushing yards isn't as high, but maybe the touchdowns is higher, right? As a group. So we'll see. And we didn't even talk about Marty Brown either.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's going to be great. Fresh, no, I think it will be a 3-headed monster, but I speculate with, I think with a blowout team's a little bit more this upcoming year, and Heatherman's defense proven that it works. So I think that you may see a Javion Mallory, a Chris Whitley-Humphrey, and a Lyle as well, and Pringle a little bit more often, based upon the fact that I do think we will blow out some teams, this upcoming year, all right, as well. But yeah, man, Marty Brown and Fletcher, that 1-2 punch, and then you have, of course, a change of pace back with Pringle. There's a lot said about Lyle, though. I mean, a lot of people forgot how good Lyle was the year Cam Ward was here, and he had that, I think it was a 97-yard touchdown run against USF that kind of like gave us a little bit of a taste of a glimpse of what Jordan Lyle really is. But a lot of people, because he didn't play much this year due to injury, he never really got his feet wet as far as what he was the year before. How good is Lyle? Because people say, and people have said, I think Don Solinger said it, that he's probably the better all around back than Fletcher, Marty Brown, and even Pringle.
Yeah, I think he was probably going in probably one of the most highly recruited running backs we've had on the roster too. You think about we snagged him from Ohio State, where he was once committed to, I believe, or at least
Yeah.
close to being committed to. But I think the biggest thing with Lyle was always, health, right?
Hmm.
The best availability, is availability. So I think as long as he's healthy throughout the football season, he's definitely going to be able to contribute. I think all it's going to do is really help someone like Mark Fletcher to where we don't have to give him as many carries early on in the season. Because now that we've been able to experience pretty much a full entire season all the way to the national championship, we kind of understand, how many bodies that we're really going to need. Because when we break down some of these other positions, it's really going to be key that we not only have guys we can rely on that are going to have to step up and be that guy, but then we're also going to need guys right behind them to be able to fill that hole in case something happens, or throughout the playoffs just need another potential body, because you're going to need as many guys as you can to rely on going through 16 game season.
Yeah, absolutely. An area of concern for some people is the tight end position. Elijah Lofton, who, to be fair, was playing with an injury this year. Alex Bauman was, a little hit or miss. Blocked okay, but not really a good receiver. A lot has been said about Luka Gilbert. Elijah, needing to ascend. But I really do like the guys that are coming in. Okay, I like Gavin Mueller. He's like a Swiss Army knife. The guy even played a lot of Wildcat in high school. And I like Izzy Briggs. Needs a little bit more size, but I like Izzy Briggs. As a matter of fact, Izzy Briggs, if you look at his tape, reminds me a little bit about basically a thinner Caleb Odom. So what are your thoughts about the tight end room? And what do you speculate from Elijah Lofton this upcoming season? Do you think he stays at the tight end position full time, or do they use him kind of like they used him the year before, like kind of like a halfback, Swiss Army knife type of receiver?
I think they're still going to probably use him the same way. I think in a perfect world, we probably should have went after a big time tight end in the transfer portal early
Yeah.
on. But we were still focused on trying to win a national championship, so I understand. Um, some of the guys you name with Mueller and Briggs, I'm high on those guys as well. But I think it's going to take at least a year or two to be able to, get at least the run blocking down at a D1 program.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really huge. We already saw how it was with a guy like Pringle as well. And even, the guy that ended up transferring over to Indiana, that was another guy that we, had a lot of high hopes for, and he didn't even get on the field as much. So as high as I am on those young guys, I think tight end is one of those specific groups where you're probably not going to see a young freshman play right away. But at the same end, I think the way Mensa is going to be able to spread the football and how many wide receivers we're going to have, they're going to just be so hungry. You're going to be able to go 4 or 5 wide and not necessarily have to have a tight end on the football field. And when you do have a tight end on the football field, I think it's going to be more for running opportunities. And that's where you're going to be able to either stack an extra lineman or have a guy like Luka Gilbert who is really good at the run blocking as well. And I think he's also going to be able to pick up that passing game a little bit better this year as well. So I think he is going to be a potential option. But I think at the end of the day, the way that we're going to run our offense, you're not going to necessarily going to have to rely on a tight end specifically in the passing game as much. And I think we're going to be able to, I think we'll be able to hide that a little bit more as long as our second tackle, whoever that ends up being that guy. As long as that ends up being the case, we can utilize some of these other linemen to be another, Swiss Army knife, so to speak, to be in the running game. And then in the passing game, you're going to go 4 or 5 wide, and you're going to have all these electrifying wide receivers that you're going to want to use.
Yeah, and speaking of wide receivers, that we are loaded. All right, we are rich at beyond belief at that position, both with incoming transfers and also young guns. That are hungry to get the football for our Miami Hurricanes. So let's break down the wide receiver room because let's face this, loaded. Starting first with Malachi Tony, he had a very impressive freshman year, and some people even said he's probably the second best wide receiver in college football right now, only behind Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. What do you think is going to be of Malachi Tony this upcoming year as a sophomore, as a true sophomore for the team? Brian, can you hear me?
You were breaking up a little bit. You there?
Oh, sorry. There we go. Down. I'm here. I am. No, I'm here. I'm here now. Yeah. No. No. I was basically asking you, like, how do you think Malachi Tony's sophomore year is going to look like? Is he going to get? Is he going to have 1,000 yards before the season actually ends this time, or do you think that he's going to be bracket a little bit more, so the ball be distributed more? Like, how do you think? How do you think Malachi is gonna end up going?
I think he's gonna have another good year. I don't know what the exact numbers are gonna be, but he's gonna be just as elusive, if not more, this year, this upcoming year, just because you're bringing in so many other weapons that you're gonna have to rely on. I don't think you're gonna be able to bracket him as much, just because Cooper Barkate, in my opinion, is a little bit more solidified than any other wide receiver that we had on this team this past year, especially with the relationship he already has with Mensa. That's going to be an awesome 1A, 1B combo. And then on top of that, you talk about, some of the other guys you're bringing in with Vaughn, who's going to be really, really exceptional. And then you also got Bendarius Jacobs as well. And we can't even forget guys like Josh Moore, Dalen Upshaw, who's battling a little injury right now. But I think once he becomes healthy, I think by week 3, week 4, and he's 100% hitting full groove, I think someone like Upshaw is going to be someone to watch. But I think the real key is going to be between the 2 transfers we brought in, Josh Moore and the true freshman and Wingo. I think those are going to be the 4 guys that you're really going to want to look for to really be that number 3, number 4 option, because I think Barkate and Malachi are really going to be the 1-2 punch, but you're going to need at least 3, 4, and 5 to be able to step up a little bit more than this past year, especially with the type of offense we're going to run. And I think you already have the guys. It's just a matter of who are going to be those. And I think someone like Wingo has the potential to have a breakout freshman year. But then I also think someone like Josh Moore, who's going to be very hungry after some of the opportunities he had this year. And then, of course, Upshaw, who had, some bright moments, but of course he got injured. You got hungry guys along with the transfer guys. So it's going to be interesting, but it's a good battle to have, because I think this is the strongest wide receiver room we've had under Mario Cristobal.
Wingo is an absolute beast. I know he played scout team, and he was pretending to be Jeremiah Smith when he played Ohio State. But that young man, when I saw his tape in high school, I mean, the kid could do anything. The guy could catch it in space, and he could catch it in space. He could go, it could blow a top off a guy as well. He could go 50-50 balls as well. He could break tackles. I mean, I think he's going to see a lot of the field, especially I would say from the middle of the season onward as well. I think you're going to see him, possibly in the starting rotation quite a bit this upcoming year, just because of the fact that he's just absolutely talented. Yeah, it's a very loaded wide receiver room, and who knows how Kevin Beard and Coach Dawson are going to rotate these guys, because it's only one football and there's a lot of guys. What about Milan Paris? I know he's another guy I was impressed with when I saw his video as well. I heard he's a guy who could possibly find some playing time this upcoming season.
Yeah, he like runs like a gazelle. I heard apparently, like just runs like he runs on water. I think he needs to get a little bit more weight on him, but I think other than that, I think he's a guy that definitely could be in the mix as well. I mean, but you already got 5 or 6 other guys I just named that I think are probably going to be ahead of him. It should be interesting. I think he's one of those guys that maybe fits in later on in the season, but I'm looking for one of the 2 transfer portal guys we're probably going to have to really hit on, and be like a breakout player. And then I think between Moore, Upshaw, and Wingo, 2 of those 3 guys are really going to be big time players for us this upcoming year. And I think going back to what I said before, right, the transfer portal, it's very key that you hit on at least 70% of your players. And you brought in 13 players in this transfer portal edition. And last year you saw with the transfer portal guys that we brought in, I think we brought in 19 guys. You hit on 73% of those guys. So that's a huge reason of the contribution of getting to the national championship. A lot of those guys were from the transfer portal, and the following year you were at 53%. And then that year before you were at 41%. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes to show you that, you got to have a very good balanced mix of the recruiting class. But at the same time, if you want the instant impact guys right away and really see that difference on the football field right away, you got to make sure you hit and get the right evaluations and the transfer portal. And it's going to be very key that you do that, because some of these players that we hit on this past year, I mean, the evaluations were crazy, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't predict someone like Keontae Scott, who was rated the 714th overall
Yes.
player in the transfer portal. Guy like Mo Torre, who was 921st. Like those type of guys are a dime a dozen, and they end up being
Mm-hmm.
like impact guys. You don't have a guy really that you brought into the transfer portal that is really that big of going to be an impact guy, unless maybe someone like Merriweather from Georgia, right? You know, I was talking earlier about who's going to be that other tackle. He was rated, I think, like 1,031st overall player in the transfer portal. So maybe that's a good evaluation, you know, that could end up being a big time player for us. Who knows?
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about how they do those evaluations, because I know he had injuries, so that may have played a role. But Mortare was an absolute beast at Rutgers. I remember him, you know, when he played against the U, you know, in that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day game in general. What goes about those evaluations, and why was someone like Mortare almost be the ranked 1,000 player in the transfer portal class?
Well, so for one, I do think Motore had some definitely big flashes over at Nebraska. He played a lot of snaps. I did think that he was more of a running stop linebacker instead of just a overall linebacker. I think one of the things that he was able to do over at Miami, and on top of being healthy, right? He had to wait a whole year to play football. I think that was part of the reason why he ended up being 1031
That's true.
because
You get a
people
point.
had a whole year. He had a whole year off of football, so people were a little worried about that, right? So all they really had film of was the workouts he was doing in the sand, and Miami was one of the first teams to pick up on it. Not to mention, you know, Heatherman already had a relationship with Motori, so that was a leg up as well. I think he just fit Heatherman's system, and he was finally healthy. And he was able to kind of spread his wings and do what he did best in this type of defense. I think the key, in my opinion, the linebacker room this year is going to make or break the defense this upcoming year, because you don't have a lot of bodies that you can rely on. You got a lot of unproven talent, and it's going to be interesting, especially if we're going to make this championship run. Who's going to be the next guys to be those linebackers to float around, you know, the 70 to 80 to 90 tackles in the season? We've yet to really get that 100 tackle linebacker in quite some time, and I'm still waiting to land one of those type of guys, whether it's in the portal or in, you know, recruiting. But when you have guys like Chase Smith and Mo Torre that you're bringing back, it's great, but you can't rely on those guys through 16 games, in my opinion. That they've yet to prove that they can really do that back-to-back seasons or consistent. And you got a guy like Kamal Bonner who didn't really play this past year. I know the stats really high on him. He's probably going to play a lot. But who's going to be, you know, Kellen Wiley, Bobby Pruitt? Those are the two guys I'm looking at, you know, that really need to be that next guy, because I think losing someone like Popo, losing someone like Tommy Kinsler, those two guys, when you look at the positions that they play, you really could have used those guys going into the next season. But at the end of the day, you got to trust the coaching staff.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the linebackers when we go over the defense, because I want to touch a little bit more about with Bopo in general. But I want to go into the offensive line. You mentioned Tommy Kinsler. We lost Tommy Kinsler through the transfer portal. There's somewhat concerns about the offensive line. We all know they're going to be good because it's a Mario Cristobal, Alex Mirabal coach team, right? In general, before I brought you on, I kind of compared this team. You know, we're talking off screen. I kind of compared this offensive line groups very similar to the 23 team. And the reason why I say that is because they were very good, but they didn't have a lot of experience playing together. Like you had a freshman, Maui Noah, you had Ines Cooper. Matt Lee was just spectacular. I think he was the best of the three as far as the transfer portal hits go at center. You had Javion Cohen, and then you had Jalen Rivers at left tackle, right, as well. This season, no one knows who's going to be the center. I've heard three names. We talked about Ryan Rodriguez, okay, as a possibility. I've heard Max Buchanan might want a shot at the center position as well. And I've also heard SJ Lafaituli. What may kind of like hurt SJ is his height and his size is what I've heard. What do you think the rotation is going to look like this upcoming season? And what do you think about the center position? It's the first time we don't get a transfer guy in the center. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the projection, in my opinion, looks a little different. When it looks at the center position, I think you're definitely going to have Ryan Rodriguez probably start there, especially since you didn't go out in the portal and get a more consistent guy.
Hmm.
So when you're comparing Matt Lee to someone like Ryan Rodriguez, I think it's a huge difference. You brought in a guy like Matt Lee who was already pretty productive over at UCF, where Ryan Rodriguez, anytime he has been in the game, he's definitely been solid, but he's always been at guard for the most part. But we all do know our offensive linemen do cross train, and we know Ryan Rodriguez definitely played a lot of center at times throughout practice and stuff. So I'm not worried about him being the center. There might be, a drop off between Brockemeyer and Rodriguez. Is it going to be a big drop off? I don't necessarily think so. Right. But then when it comes to the backups, I have heard a little different. I have heard that Reef Woodrow, is a name to look out at center, and then obviously SJ as well. But I just think SJ, in my opinion, is still a little undersized. I think they're going to try to use him where they have him currently. And then I think they already had another guy in Jonathan Klein, who they were trying to recruit a couple cycles ago
Yeah.
that they ended up getting, that played at UCF a couple years. I think he's a guy that you're going to want to watch at the center position, and he could play some guard as well. So he's a guy that could cross train. So I wouldn't be surprised if Klein is in the mix at center as well, depending on how he looks. I would give him a look. Guard position, you're probably looking at Sampson Okinola at one guard and Max Buchanan at the other guard. I really like Max Buchanan a lot. I just think he needs that opportunity. I think especially with Tommy Kinsler leaving, it gives you a big opportunity for someone like Max Buchanan, who I think can really excel. I think the real key, Will, is going to be that left tackle position. Obviously, it's going to be protecting Mensah. You got Cantwell at the right tackle, but at left tackle, you got three options. You got McCoy, you got Merriweather from Georgia that you just got transferred in, and then you also got Juan Minaya. I think Juan Minaya is a name to watch. I think he can definitely turn some heads. Do I think he's going to end up starting? No, but I think throughout the football season, he's going to be a guy that's already been comfortable in this, offensive line room for a couple of years now. He knows, what it takes to get the job done, and he definitely has the measurables and the size. I think he could be a potential name as well, but I think that's going to be a huge battle on Green Tree going through spring and fall camp, is going to be that left tackle position. Because if you're able to get, awesome stuff from a Merriweather, from a Minaya, and even a guy like Joel Irvin, if you're able to get good stuff from all three of those guys, it allows you to still be flexible with someone like Matt McCoy, to then maybe you don't have to rely on a Max Buchanan at guard really early, right? I think it gives you the flexibility to do a few things. That's why it's so great to cross train and you have someone like Maribel and Cristobal. But I don't think your offensive line has to be as great as it was the last couple of years based off the offense we're going to be running. I think Mintz is going to be getting the ball a lot more quicker. I think you're going to be able to spread, these running lanes a lot more when you are able to go 4 or 5 wide. I think it's going to give big opportunities to someone like Pringle in this offense, and Lyle. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to be just fine at that position at the offensive line. I think at the end of the day, going back, the linebacker room, that's the room for me.
Okay. Well, since we're segue there, let's talk about the defense a little bit, and let's talk about the linebacker room as well. I'm a little biased because I know his dad personally, but I do think that losing Bobo is going to be, I think we will feel the impact. His leadership, right, as well. He had 43 tackles this past season. He had 6 tackles against Notre Dame, so he was very productive when he was in the game. And again, he's also a very good leader as well, very vocal in the field and lining up guys and everything. What is your take about the linebacker position? Once again, with a loss like a Bobo and having to rely on young guys like Cam Bobby Pruitt, Kenneth Bonner, who didn't play last season, and possibly be hearing names like Kellen Wiley as well.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I would be lying if I said I wasn't, a little hurt that Popo left. Hearing from, people in his camp, obviously, I think that the biggest thing with Popo was he wanted to go somewhere where he could pretty much almost start, right? He felt like he deserved a lot more snaps. And, there was some opportunity there, but at the same time, man, Wesley Bassant was playing his tail off all year, right? Mo Torre was playing good football all year. So you couldn't really take those guys off the field. But at the same time, I do understand. And when you do bring back a Mo Torre for another year, it kind of lets someone like Popo know, hey man, you're not guaranteed the starting spot. I think if Motori would have left and not got that extra year, I think Popo stays. But I think he did what it was best for him and his family, and so
Yeah.
you can't be mad about that. But at the end of the day, yes, the linebacker room is the one for me that I'm going to be looking at throughout the year. One, because that's Heatherman's room. So if anyone knows best on what needs to be done in that room, he needs to get those guys right, because the fact that you didn't really go into the transfer portal to get at least one guy was a little bit of a concern for me. But you're relying on Chase Smith and Motore, who both have a lot of snaps under their belt, but they also are known for not being that healthy, right? And when you're going to go through a 16-game season, you need a lot of guys that are reliability. And it goes right back to my point. You need linebackers that are floating around that 70, 80, 90 mark, right? And in order to do that, you got to be available every single week.
Yeah.
Are those guys going to be consistent and available every single week? That's to be determined. I really hope so. But at the end of the day, you still need other guys to step up. And that's where Kamal Bonner, who didn't play last year, who I know the staff is high on, he's going to have to step up very big time. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, Bobby Pruitt, this is his time to shine. I think this is going to be really his opportunity to really fill in a spot and really solidify a position on this football team and not just be a special teams guy, because I think anytime he has been on the field, he's really shown some highlights.
Yeah.
And then Kellen Wiley Jr. was a guy, a freshman this past cycle that I was very high on. When you turn on the tape, man, he flashes everywhere. I think you give him the opportunity, the more he gets comfortable in college football snaps, he's going to be a guy to watch. So it'll be interesting, but I think one or two guys that I just named have to step up.
Yeah. I think Pruitt's going to be a sleeper. I think he's going to ball. I mean, he's a highly intelligent football player. Has a good high football IQ. When he was recruited at Alabama, he's got electric speed. He's a linebacker that runs like a defensive back. So I think Pruitt's going to be that dude. That's just my perspective. I think he's going to be that guy. You know,
listen, right? Like I understand that people are hurt at some of these transfer portal guys that left, but we also have to look at the real facts, right? You had 18 players, I believe, leave the program. Mm-hmm. Only 3 of those guys, including Popo, had over 60 snaps for us this past year. So you gotta understand the productivity behind some of these names. You can't fall in love with the highlight, reels from high school film or the interviews they did, prior to being a Hurricane, or because they look good in a uniform, right? You gotta remember, if you want the Canes to get back to where we just were this past year, we need productivity, and you got to bring in guys that can do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Pruitt showed flashes his freshman year. If I'm not mistaken, if I can recall, forgive me, I think you have a better memory than I do. Didn't he force a fumble against Syracuse in that game, the last game of the season? If I'm not mistaken, I think he's the one that forced the fumble in that game. And I mean, he has showed some flashes. So I'm just saying, I think that he's going to be a guy that's a sleeper. And he's going to be pretty productive for Miami as well. Now let's talk about a position that I am not concerned about at all in our defense, and that's our D-line. I think our D-line is absolutely sick, loaded with 5 stars, starting and backing up as well. You can't replace Bain and Mesidor. Those guys are just like, they're generational players, especially the productivity they give us this year. But you can't sleep on Lightfoot and you can't sleep on Wilson. How do you think our defensive line is going to play this season as far as dominance goes, especially being 2 years under Heatherman's system?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, getting a guy like Damon Wilson after losing a Mesidor and Bain, it's going to be impossible to replace a Ruben Bain and even a Akeem Mesidor, who ended up being a top 5 sack leader all time at the University of Miami when it was all said and done, which was huge. It's impossible to replace those guys, but you need guys to fill in those roles. And I think at the end of the day, the way Heatherman plays his style defense, the more guys you could alternate and bring in fresh bodies, the better. And I don't think you're going to have that big time instant impact guys like the 2 I just named, but I think as a group and as a whole, that defensive line could be just as good, if not better, based off, the way the offense is going to be playing, to where the defense is going to be able to just pin back and rush the quarterback because we're going to be ahead a lot in some of these games. Or just because, dude, you land a guy like Damon Wilson, who was rated the number 8 overall transfer portal, in this class this year, right? And I believe the year prior, he was rated like number 3 or number 4, right ahead of
Yeah.
Carson Beck the prior year. So this is an instant impact guy who you're going to be able to bring in and at least feel some of the productivity. And then to your point, dude, you got Marquise Lightfoot, you got Ahmad Moten, who decided to come back, who I think he could have easily went into the NFL draft and got maybe a 3rd round grade, possibly 2nd round grade, if his combine went well. But he decided to come back for another year. So I think between those two guys, a Justin Scott, who really proved himself a lot this year, Armando Blunt as well. I think someone like Hayden Lowe,
Yeah.
someone like Kiana Davis and Jarquez Carter that we brought from the transfer portal. I think between those 3 guys, I think 2 out of those 3 guys are really going to have to step up for this team to really fill in a role. And then I also think between Herbert Scroggins, my boy Cole McConaughey, who's finally healthy, I think between those 2 and maybe a Booker Pickett, maybe one of those 3, give us some flashes similar to what Marquise Lightfoot did for us this past year. I think as a group, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Kirk. I really appreciate me show that comment a little bit. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I just think we're stacked. I just think we're stacked. I think, and we're very loaded at the end. Like every single name that you mentioned at the defensive end position was highly recruited. Jarquez Carter is interesting because Miami was heavily recruiting him before he committed to Ohio State, and I think he played 7 snaps. I think he plays 7 snaps, if I'm not mistaken, for Ohio State. Not many snaps he played this season for the Buckeyes. Do you think he gets much? I know he's a little undersized, like 275. I know Mara likes him a little bigger in the interior. Do you think he gets quality snaps this year and big games, or do you think that we have such a nice rotation piece that he may have to wait his turn a little bit?
No, I think he definitely can get quality snaps for this team, especially if we're going to go 16 games. When you look at where he was playing at, you got to remember, as loaded as Miami was at defensive line this past year, Ohio State was loaded just as much, if not more, specifically at the defensive tackle position. They got 1st-round guys all over there. So the fact that Jarquez Carter even saw some snaps over there is surprising to me, not only because he is a little undersized, but because of how stacked they were at that position this past year. So that just goes to show you some of the talent that Jarquez Carter has. And he's right back. He's from, right back in my backyard right here in Newberry, Florida. And I had the opportunity to interview him back in high school when he was making that decision to commit to Miami originally before flipping to Ohio State. And Miami was the first school to land a helicopter at his high school. And he talked about how monumental of a pinch me moment that was, where his whole school, all his friends, the teachers, everybody was running to the windows like, what the heck is going on, right? And it was all for Jarquez Carter. And he didn't go all the way in the first time with Miami, but hey, second go around, was something different. And I think he has a huge opportunity to definitely make a name for himself very early on. He was rated the 390th guy in the transfer portal, which goes right back to my point earlier, where you got to be able to evaluate on certain guys, because Jacoby Thomas, 261st rated overall. James Brockemeyer, 285th overall. Marty Brown, 464th. So those are guys that are floating around the same, rank as a Jarquez Carter, right? So if you can hit on your evaluation on someone like him to maybe be as productive or as impactful as someone like those 3 guys, maybe like a Marty Brown or a Brockemeyer, right? Some productivity. I think that's a hit. And I think he could possibly do that for you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's kind of funny how Mario learned that from Nick Saban. That was a Saban thing to do, is drop the helicopter on the field, as well. So he used to do that all the time at STA, when he wanted some of them at South Florida guys. All right, so let's go now to a fun position that I want to talk about, and that is the safety position, right? We had some pretty good safety play this year with Zachariah Poyser. Bryce Fitzgerald really stood out with six interceptions as well. So what's your take this year as far as the safety position goes, with the possibility of a Poyser Fitzgerald combination? And we have some young guys as well. Omar Thurman came in from the portal, and then we have some young guys as well that were highly recruited coming in. Cortez Redding and JJ Dunnigan.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, losing a guy like Jacoby Thomas and Keontae Scott is
Yeah.
definitely gonna,
Mhm.
hurt a little bit. But at the same time, the corners that we're bringing back, I think just even the more opportunities those guys get, we're going to be extremely loaded to where I don't think you're going to have to rely on as many guys at the safety room, because we're going to have so many corners that are going to be flexible in certain spots. But I think the key guy, in my opinion, is going to be Omar Thornton out of Boston College. He's a guy that was originally from Miami, played with some of the guys locally back in Pop Warner, I believe, down in South Florida. And when you really turn on this guy's tape, he gives you the mix of a Jacoby Thomas and a Keontae Scott all in one. And he's one of those guys where he can really be a plug and play guy, where he can really just fit right in to what a Keontae Scott or Thomas brought to this program. I think he's going to be very key and influential, and a huge impact on this football team, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a name to watch. Obviously, Poyser, Fitzgerald, who you name, are going to have to continue to step up. I think a kid like JJ Dunnigan, I think there's not too many freshmen, in my opinion, in this class that are going to be instant impact guys. I think it's going to take a year for a lot of these guys. But if there is one that has really been able to benefit for playing in the college football system already for about a month, I think Dunnigan is one of the few guys that can really, from a talent aspect, ball skills, I think him, and I also think someone like Wayman, who can play both sides of the field. I think those two guys are two names to watch as far as freshmen. But then you also got to remember, between Damari Brown, who was injured this past year and obviously came back, and Dylan Day. I think those two guys
Okay.
are going to be names to watch, along with Chris Ewald Jr. and even a young Ryan Mack. I think all four of those guys are going to battle it out to really help the Ethan O'Connors, the OJs, and the Xavier Lucases of the world. But you're so deep at the safety and secondary as a whole, man. The fact that, knock on wood, as long as nothing crazy happens, Will Harris, you're able to keep Will Harris
Yeah.
on staff to pair, with Etheridge, and you're bringing everyone back in the secondary. It was huge, besides those two guys I named.
Yeah, the corner position is absolutely loaded. We have Xavier Lucas, who has eligibility as well. Damari Brown, when he wasn't injured, he made an impact. He's a big physical corner as well. I'm really excited. I'm also excited about the young guys, man. You just mentioned one of them, Chris Ewald. Jabari Antwald showed flashes in the playoffs, so I'm really excited about that. Not only that, also the incoming freshman as well with Jalen Seatbelt Waters as well. This is a very, very, very talented secondary that Miami is going to be putting out here in the football field. I will say this: I am very upset that the targeting call happened, and I'm not saying because I'm a homer. I felt the same thing should not have happened in the Georgia game. I thought the safety, I forgot his name, the safety at Georgia against Ole Miss should not have been hit with a targeting call either. That really changed the trajectory of the game, in my opinion, early on, because you could see the difference in coverage between the way Heatherman called the coverage packages when Lucas was not there in comparison to when Lucas was in the game. But that being said, I do think this year Miami has a lot more Lucases, in their on the roster. A lot of young guys like Ewald, who's fresh, and Deepwater, are clearly big fans of, right, as well. That could play press coverage and play a tight man-to-man coverage and are very physical as well. So tell us a little bit more about the young guys. The guys are in their second year and heading into their freshman year as well. Like a guy like Antoine, who's heading into second year, and a guy like Waters, who's going to be, and Camden Porter, so you want to throw him in there as well, heading into this year.
Yeah, I think all those names that you mentioned, man, I think from a measurable and a ball skill standpoint, they're already there. It's just a matter of getting some more snaps under the belt. Again, going back to the playing style of how this offense is going to be, um, you're going to be able to put up a lot of points, and it's going to put your opponents in desperate opportunities where your D line's going to be able to pin their ears back and rush
Mm-hmm.
the quarterback a lot more, in my opinion, which is then going to allow the opportunity of your corners to play a little bit more press, and then also have the flexibility of getting a little bit more rangy and really playing the ball a little bit more. You're going to have a lot more Jacoby Thomases and Bryce Fitzgerald opportunities this upcoming year, in my opinion. just because you're going to be putting the offense in a lot of desperate opportunities. And I think even guys like Waters, Camden Portis, they're even going to get opportunities in some of these games that we're going to blow people out as well. I think the interception margin, as good as it was this year, I think it's going to be even better next year because of how good overall our offense is going to be as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Brad, we made it, man. We went through the entire roster, man, in under an hour. surprise, man, under an hour. Once again, my friend, thank you so much for joining the show. Again, like, you're everywhere, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and talk to the audience as well here at 305 Sports Now. But of course, my friend, let us know where we can find you on any of your social media outlets, any appearances you're going to make, on other podcasts as well.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. It's always a good time talking Canes with you, man. Make sure the fans hit that like button and subscribe to my guy Will's channel, man. He always does a great job. You can find me on X or Twitter, however you want to call it, at Tejeda Brad. That's TEJEDABRAD. You can also find me on YouTube, whether that's on 305 Sports Now, Locked on Canes with Alex Dono, and also appear on other shows as well. But make sure you hit that follow button for me on X. And I'll definitely be making some more trips around. And if you ever need something, man, just hit me up.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. But before we go, man, Gio Cane's been great. He's been listening to the whole entire podcast. You want to answer this question? Do you think the Canes go all the way this year and take the Natty?
If I'm honest with you, man, I think we do. I think there's a couple of reasons why. I think for one, Mario Cristobal said the first year he got here, he said that fifth year, he literally called it. He said that fifth year is going to be when Miami's going to be at the top and people need to watch the F out, is literally what he said. And when you look at what he's done, started 5-7, then he went to 7-6, then he went to 10-3, then he went to 13-2 this past year. The guy has only improved every single year. So if you're looking at the track record, he can't go less than 13 wins. So you're talking 14-1, 15-0. The only way to have that record is by getting all the way back to the dance. And I think if you do that, there's no way we're losing again. And I think we have, as long as certain guys really step up for this team, I think you're definitely going to have the offense. You're going to have a top 10 offense in the country this year, upcoming year. And I think Heatherman's still going to be able to have a top 25 defense. When you have those two recipes, the only way to really lose is to not have really good game management or your special teams to be like absolutely terrible. And I think we're going to be okay. And I think we've already gone through a gauntlet. We know what it takes. I think this upcoming year could be the time to do it. I'm prepared and ready to make all those trips again.
Yeah, I agree with you, my friend. I think we have a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense. The schedule also presents itself for that. You don't have SMU on your schedule. You don't have NC State, who I think is going to be a little bit more improved. You don't have Georgia Tech either, and so on. So no Louisville, right? No Louisville either. So let's see, Gio Cane. Yeah, man. Let's hopefully not, man. It was brutal in the playoffs. I will say that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard from the man himself, Brad Tejeda. All right, please follow all his social media outlets and check him out on various podcasts, including this one, 305 Sports Now, and Locked on Canes as well. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast, 305 Sports Now. Once again, I am Will for Brad Tejeda. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.